Taxi drivers overheard it. What was most WTF conversations you overheard from people in your backseat? Not a taxi driver, but I was in an Uber pool with my GF going to the airport at 4 am. We pick up this white girl, who looks high drunk AF, and sits in the front seat next to our African driver. She starts talking and her words are slurring and asks the driver where he's from, to which he says Kenya. She says Hakuna Matata. I speak Swahili and our Uber driver laughs at her. She says something else in Swahili and her and the driver talk for like 20 minutes in Swahili. The whole time my GF are just looking at each other like WTF is happening. Apparently she wasn't lying and spoke some pretty good Swahili. If I really spoke Swahili, I would always lead with Hakuna Matata. I was giving this couple a lift 3 days after my younger brother had died and wasn't really feeling conversation. I was keeping my eyes on the road and the lady said to the man, "Honey, our driver looks like he's on drugs. Look how out of it he looks," as if I wasn't in the vehicle. I smiled at the lady and said, "So how's your night going?" She didn't even answer. What a C. As someone who lost a younger bro, I'm sorry you had to deal with that lady. Sorry for your loss. Not totally related, but on the train I overheard a guy on the phone with his friend and was gloating about how his luck has finally changed because he got an email from a lawyer in Nigeria that said he is next in line for a really big inheritance. Oh no. I was kind of in the middle of this conversation myself. There was a lady in the front seat, and her boyfriend sat in the back. I'm a very talkative person whenever I have fares, so I start a conversation. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, this happened. Her. To me. My freaking god. You remind me so much of my ex. Him. Oh my freaking god, babe. I swear. Your exes are the only things you ever talk about. She goes completely silent for a while, and he continues. If you care so much about them, why don't you go back to them? Her. You know I love you most. Him. Sure doesn't sound like it. They kept bickering about this the entire ride home. About 8 minutes. And at this point I'm just sat there. Silent as all heck. I had to drive a photographer to another town. And I took a friend of mine to accompany me. While driving there was silence. And all of a sudden, my friend began telling us how he saw on YouTube people getting their skin peeled off. I was like, dude, what the frick? There's a guy on YouTube who has a skin condition requiring him to shave off his foot skin with a razor blade. I've been driving in NYC for the past 6 years. I had these hipster from Brooklyn one late Saturday night. I just picked them up from a bar. 2 girls, 1 guy, and the guy was telling the girls about this guy, Jack, he was talking to at the bar. He apparently was talking to another guy, no name, about this chick he slept with in college who had a cold vagina. Jack sitting next to him turned and said, "Are you talking about Anna?" He turned to Jack and said, "Yeah, you know her?" Jack then said, "Yeah, I banged her too and could never figure out her deal." They then bonded over Anna. Then it got weirder because the girls started talking by themselves about the parties they used to throw. One was with a dead cat in a pool and someone was playing a violin in the pool and some girl showed up in a duct tape dress only covering her privates. Yes, you meet a bunch of stranger people driving in NYC. Excuse me while I Google if cold vagina is a medical condition. Other way round. Had a gig DJing at a club in town and got a taxi to the venue. While in the car the driver starts getting angry at the car in front of us. With no reasoning he's decided the driver is Asian and goes on a lengthy diatribe about how she should get out the country. Then a lengthy monologue on why she couldn't drive because she was a woman. Then a treatise on how her children must be retarded. He managed to fit 3 isms into less than 10 minutes. If I weren't so horrified I'd be impressed kinda. I'm alone. With a lot of expensive equipment in a car with a guy who is completely unhinged. I say nothing, get to the venue, jump out and go to get my equipment out the back, where I noticed a sports bag in the back, with not 1, but at least 8 claw hammers. This was nearly 10 years ago and to this day I can't figure out a reasonable reason to have a bag full of claw hammers in your car. I complained to the taxi firm but that's useless here. Well, it was till Uber turned up. Yikes. He sound like a very unsafe individual. Glad you arrived and got out of his vicinity. I'm not a driver but me and my friends spent a whole trip talking about psychedelics and stoned ape theory once. Driver did not partake. I drove Uber and had an extremely drunk middle-aged couple get in the car after dinner. Well, the husband was extremely drunk anyway, maybe high as well. He spent the entire 25-minute ride telling his wife about how much he wanted to sleep with one of her friends. Not that he would, of course, just how pretty she was and how much he really wanted to sleep with her. The wife was not pleased. One time we got picked up by a cab driver who had the inside decked out with disco lights, subs and only played like trance German techno. I was the 9th of May 2010 drunk, weirdest night of my life. Uber driver here. Listened to two girls and a gay dude have a 20 minutes conversation about different lubes and their positive or negative feedback. It ended with one of the girls claiming to be a lube connoisseur. Not a taxi driver, but I remember a taxi driver stopped because of traffic. The taxi being right next to me with the window opened, and I think the drunk woman in the taxi yelled "Hi sexy" in this really loud voice, calling out for a dog in a car. Woof. I drive for Uber part-time in Las Vegas. Last Labor Day I pick up a group of 4, 2 men, 2 women, and they were heading to a very popular gay club near the strip. The ride started out normally, just some people in their 20s going to party. After about 10 minutes of normal conversation they somehow get on the topic of which cities they visited have the best sea. My car is a particularly bad place to have this conversation, especially on that very weekend because it just so happened to be the 12-year anniversary of my father passing away from a sea overdose. I had to shut them down very quickly, and once I told them why, no one said another word for the rest of the ride. How I see many comments of "I am not a taxi driver." I'll tell another story as driver that was so surrealist for me. One night around 12 PM I picked up a couple in a taxi stop that is in front of a shopping center where are almost all the discos and pubs of the south of the island, Gran Canaria. They were local, not tourists, and they would be about 40 years old. Both had sit in the backside. The man was so drunk that almost couldn't speak, and the woman was a little bit drunk too, but she was so polite with me. She said me the location and then the trip started. The woman started to say to his drunk husband that hang out now it's impossible because everything has changed. The music, the people, there are drugs everywhere. Now everything is a business and you are all children of the capitalism. She said the last sentence like she was a superior form of life or a goddess. The man did not answer her and simply lay down on the seat, resting his head on his wife's legs, falling asleep. Then I seen by the rear view how she looked at him and started to caress his head. Meanwhile she said, "The human race is condemned because it contaminates the oceans and treated nature as if it were theirs, but everything is okay because one day Mother Nature will recover what belongs to her. The ocean's level will high up, the volcanoes will explode and the animals will kill the survivors and I will enjoy all this." Again saying this like she wasn't a human, and then she said some words in a language that I had never heard before. At this point I was so WTF, and the drunk asleep man just babbling. Yes, honey, you are right. When we arrived she just woke up the man, paid me, said thank you and go to their home as nothing. I spent all night thinking where the heck these people are coming from. She prob was not human. Not me, but a relative once overheard a phone conversation. It went like this. Hello? Yes dear, I am on my way to work. Pause. They asked me to go to location because they wanted me to meet and work with someone from another company. Pause. I might not be back so early, so there is no need to wait up. Hangs up. My relative. Do you want me to change the destination? There is no need. Keep going to the original location. She was going to a club and was dressed like a rest but with slightly more decency. After they reached outside the club, she was confronted by some buffed dude and they held hands and walked into the club. She was 100% cheating on her husband. I drive for Uber in Nashville for a couple months. I drove many cheaters. More than a few occasions I was invited inside and propositioned. Only said yes once. Only because she was way out of my league and we actually clicked when talking. Not a taxi, but I was on the commuter train heading back home after a long day. About 2 stops before my actual stop, I get up and hang near the door, working on Duolingo with my headphones on. This is relevant. These 2 black teenagers were also getting off at my station and stand about 2 feet behind me. They then start making racist comments about me in a stereotypically Apu-like Indian accent. I'm a brown dude. Things like, "Oh, Look at me. I'm listening to Bollywood music on my phone. Oh no, I'm not moving from here, and such. They assumed I couldn't hear them since they thought I was listening to music. As I was about to get off, I turned towards them and told them, "Thank you, come again," in my best Apu accent. The look on their faces was gold. This is beautiful. Had a man in with this chick. Very drunk. It was late at night, maybe 1 AM. Man goes to the girl, "Do you think my wife is back yet? Last I heard she and my son were hitting it in the next door pool." I died of laughter after they got out of the cab. Wait, I'm sorry, what? Not a taxi driver, but one time I was sitting in a taxi when I was like 8 and the driver and my stepdad started talking about drugs and sex. I was like 8. I'm an Uber driver. I heard a group of teens in my car whisper on the phone. No, he didn't see the CI kicked them out and the shortest one proceeded to throw a bag at my car and I continued to drive off. Loaded a couple and single guy at a bar downtown, and we're off to the knee suburbs. A 10-15 minute trip. The guy in the front is telling hubby in the back, "When we get to your place, I'm going to frick your wife right in front of you, and there's not a goddamn thing you can do about it," and variations thereon. Hubby in the back is crying and saying, "I thought you were my friend and how could you do this to me, and we have children," over and over. The wife is holding her face in both her hands and saying, "I'm so confused. I'm so confused. Stay classy, Marlboro, Ides." And that was Globe Taxi for you old time Calgarians. Never draw to an inside straight. When I was an Uber driver, I mostly just drove at night because I made more money. The weirdest conversation I overheard was when I picked a 20-30-ish-year-old guy and a girl of about the same age from a strip club. The whole time the guy is rambling about his new startup and how he's going to basically own city we were in a few years, deadpan serious. These are some of the lines he drops. "I don't have friends. I have colleagues. I've never had a job before. I've just known a lot of rich people. I know how they think. That's why this program works. People don't understand the kind of intelligence I'm working with." This goes on for the entire car ride. Every now and then she would try to change the subject, but he was able to take everything she said and turn it into something about his company. We get to the hotel they had as their destination, and as soon as he gets out, she shuts the door behind him and says to me, "Would you mind taking me somewhere else?" Well, she was the one that ordered the ride, so I drove off before the guy could start making a big deal about it. She set a new destination, and the rest of the ride was pretty uneventful. No idea whatever happened to the guy. It's been a few years, and he still doesn't own the city, so I don't think his business ever went quite as planned. Not a taxi driver, but I got into a cab once when I was very drunk. I noticed the cab driver had his friend in the passenger seat. This was weird, but I was too smashed to care. I just gave them the address and off we went. As we are driving, the guy in the passenger seat signals to me and the drive was like, "No, not him. We'll take this one back to his house." Scared the pee out of me, but again, too drunk, and when I got home I passed out before I could do anything else. I really hope they didn't hurt anyone that night. Not a driver, but a passenger. So I was in the city with a friend and his mum and dad. The mum had a bit to drink and she and the father were arguing in the taxi, where the mother lost the freaking $3K wedding ring that the father had bought. And holy crap, did they were freaking out. Alright, this is a funny story I can't stop laughing about. I'm 27 and this happened about a year ago. I picked up a couple asking to go to an address in New Jersey. I was in New York and got paid almost nothing. Mission accomplished. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.